Joining me on the program now is Brook Turner from VisionWest. Brook, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Great to be with you, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Now, back in our day, perhaps the opportunity to have your first job. I mean, can you remember back? What was your first job, Brook?
Well, my first job, I have to confess, I can't believe I'm doing this on live radio, but was McDonald's,
Oh,
and
nice.
I got a job at 15. It's very hard for young people to get a job at 15 these days,
No
and I was
shame.
on the
You are.
four to one.
Oh my
Oh, sorry.
goodness. Yeah, no shame in that. Brook, were you flipping the burgers or were you on the cleaning the
I was.
tables?
Yep, I was doing the quarter pounder, and if you remember Jonah Lomu, do you remember the Kiwi
Yes.
burger that came out and
Yeah,
Jonah
yeah.
Lomu promoted the Kiwi burger? I was making Kiwi burgers, Andrew, so
Oh,
that was my first
no,
job. Palmerston North McDonald's.
that is an honourable profession indeed. And I suppose that boost that it gives you, okay, it's humble beginnings perhaps, but from there to be able to go, hey, this is a start, gets me some money, I can start thinking about what I'm wanting to do in the future, whether it be study or vocation. It's a solid start in life, but for so many young people, that opportunity isn't there. There aren't the jobs out there, and of course the discouragement that goes with that.
That's right. Look, it's super tough for young people out there today. And of course, a lot of things have changed. One thing that's changed is no one will employ 15-year-olds now.
Yeah.
You have to be 16 to get a job. And the other thing is you have to go back more than 10 years, 11 years actually, to get to the same level of youth unemployment as we've got today, where we're at 14.28%. And just 3 years ago, we were under 10%. So, there's like been a 50% rise of young people who, for whatever reason, maybe mainstream education isn't working for them.
Yep.
Maybe they're looking for other opportunities, but super hard to get work. And as you said in your intro, when you don't get work and you don't get that contribution, that actually impacts on your hope and your sense of self-worth, right?
Yep.
And although McDonald's was a early start for me, I still remember that first paycheck.
Yeah.
In my bank account, I wanted to buy a pair of Grant Hill Fila basketball boots,
Wow.
and then I blew all my money on a pair of expensive shoes. But there's no feeling like it, and there's
Yeah.
no learning like it, right? And so many young people are missing out on that today.
A part of the problem, I suppose, especially in tough economic times, if there's a limited number of jobs out there, it's tougher for young people because they don't have the experience. They don't have a reference from their previous employer because they've never had a job before. Also, not really having the culture and the work ethic. It's a bit of a risk for employers to say, you know what, I'm going to employ a young person, a school leaver, or even a bigger risk, somebody who is a young person who's been on the benefit for quite a period of time. Difficult risks for some employers to take, to be fair.
Absolutely. And I think that's even compressed in a greater way by the fact that many adults, are struggling to find work or have
Yep.
lost work. And so a lot of those retail or hospitality jobs that usually are vacant for young people when we've got a bumper economy right now are being filled, and rightly so, by adults who are just trying to make ends meet for their families, right?
Yeah.
But I think equally, to take a chance on a young person you don't know and who's got no experience, to your point, is a super tough thing to do. That being said, there are some wonderful schemes out there. There's a scheme called Flexi Wage that if you take a young person off the benefit and
Yep.
you give them a chance to work with you, the Ministry of Social Development will actually help fund the first 6 months of their employment, not their full wage,
Yep.
but they will support employers to do that. So there are mechanisms in place that sort of ease the risk that there is for bringing young people into employment. But it certainly is a big step for many of our young people and those who come from vulnerable communities and households.
Talk to us about that, Brooke, because I mean, this is the communities that you work with, where you have young people who are struggling to find work and struggling to find hope and a vision for the future, and perhaps the culture, the family background that they're from. There's not some strong role models there. There is perhaps multi-generational beneficiaries in that space. Difficult to find, I suppose, the aspiration to want a better life for themselves, especially when it's so hard at the moment for them to see hope on the horizon.
That's right. And, I'm sure listeners are out there thinking about their own employment, and maybe a person in your youth or at your university or a teacher at your school that opened your eyes to another world,
Yeah.
the world of engineering or the world of air travel or the world of mechanics or whatever that thing was, or a person at your church who, took you on for a summer job and you actually realized, hey, I really love doing that piece of work in that multi-generational beneficiary space.
Yeah.
All you see is that need for support from the state, and that, I'm from a household, I'm from a family, and we just need the government to support us to do all these things,
Yeah.
including pay the bills. And so it's really hard if you don't have that role model. A big part of our work at Vision West is providing those role models in the form of youth coaches that get alongside young people who've been on benefit and actually support them to see a world outside of their own. And that is so critical. But you don't need to be a youth coach at Vision West. You could be a generous church member and do the same thing.
And actually having somebody come alongside these young people, and look, I know that there's people that do this professionally at MSD and work an income and do some wonderful work in that space. But as anybody who's been unemployed for a period of time knows, it's a crunching machine. It crushes your spirit to be applying for job after job after job, not getting interviews, and even when you do get an interview, not being the successful candidate. You definitely need a cheerleader in that space to keep you going, to keep holding on to that hope that one day you're going to get a job and have a brighter future.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, I'm sure we can think about it with our own kids, right? That even in households where you've got two income families, that, young people, I mean, they're children, right? They're learning to do things for the first time, and their bodies may look more adult, but their brains are still developing.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the resilience that you and I have. They don't have that experience of, learning those skills and that perseverance to sort of keep going at times. And they need cheerleaders. They need people around them that dust them off, that say, hey, look, you got a bit of a bloodied knee moment there with that no, but every no gets you closer to your next yes, and let's go. And a real example of this is a young woman named Amor who came into Vision West last year. She had actually had up and go. She came from one of those households that we're talking about, but she actually started a beauty company via Instagram, was doing really well at 18, and then had a moment in the weekend where she ended up having a surprise pregnancy. Well, that pregnancy and the complications with her pregnancy destroyed her business. And she found herself on benefit, found herself as a mum when she didn't expect to be a mum at that age. And to your point, all hope was shattered at that point. She reached out to Vision West because her sister recommended her to us. We put her through a budgeting course. We got those youth coaches around her. She came into an environment of belonging, an environment of belief, an environment that recast her experience, going, isn't it incredible that you started a business at 18? Isn't it incredible that you're a parent at 18? Look at all this responsibility you're taking. And through that process, she ended up at a business course and is now employed. Now, she could have spent years on the benefit. In fact, a young person that gets on the benefit, their average stay is between 12 to 18 years.
Gosh.
So it takes a real intervention to get young people back into work. But when we do make that concerted effort, and to your point, not just job opportunities, but the opportunity for hope, change can happen.
And honestly, as people of faith, this is a commodity that we should be good at encouraging, I suppose, bringing hope to people that are struggling. I know this is a key focus for you and the team at Vision West, but taking people who are in some pretty desperate situations and offering them hope, yes, spiritually, of course, but also a hope that perhaps their situation, their future can be better than what they're looking at the moment. Everybody needs a reason to get dressed in the morning and head out the door. And for young people, tragically, many of them don't have that reason yet. They don't have that hope on the horizon. But I love your challenge, Brook, that hey, you don't need to be an agency like Vision West to provide hope to young people in your family, in your community, in your church. We can encourage young people to keep on going, right?
Absolutely. And look, there may be listeners there this morning that, for whatever reason, you don't have employment right now.
Yep.
You may be a young person, but you may be, an older person that's without work. And what I'd say to you is that, God sees you in this moment and he hears the cry of your heart, and you're not alone. And there are people around you, and he is around you to believe in you, and that all of us have a creative spark within us, that potential that God placed in us to contribute to a better world. And that's you. And that's in every young person that we come across. And even when they're presenting with all kinds of struggles, we need to look past the struggle to that creative potential. And that's what God does for each one of us. And hopefully we can do that for others too.
Such good stuff indeed. Brook, thank you so much for your encouragement, for the hope that you bring through the organisation of VisionWest. Of course, people can find out more, visionwest.org.nz, for more information, but thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.